Today, I want to do a deeper dive into digital marketing. Now, this is an area of business that has simultaneously fascinated and frustrated me since the very beginning. I think back to when I first started McEwen Media and I was launching a business from my home in the middle of lockdown. I was just drinking from the fire hose on how to establish an online presence, how to build an online business, how to master the art of digital marketing. And immediately felt overwhelmed with the information about all of the tools and techniques that are available to us to generate interest and to generate sales. And over the last couple of years, I've tried a bunch of things. I've figured out things that work for me. But one thing that I found that is consistent, and that might actually be the root of my frustration, is that of all the information that's available out there on how to master the art of digital marketing, there's so much emphasis on the tools and products that are available to us and very little to do with the content. What is the story that you are telling? What is the information that you are giving to your clients and your customers that they actually need in order to make the decision to invest in working with you? And I firmly believe that if you don't have the right content, you're not going to close the way that you want to close. You're not going to attract your ideal client. Content wins every single time. In fact, I had a conversation with someone this morning. She's launching a book in the fall, and she's deciding between working with me in our new service, the Launch It Loud, where it's an intensive media training and pitch process. You learn how to pitch and develop an interview segment. You get an interview with me. You get viral marketing materials to promote your product. She's deciding whether or not to go down that route or go with the Google ads. And so I pointed out to her that whatever route she decides to go on, whether it's organic or paid, you still need the content. You still need the messaging that will help people decide that your book, your product, your offer is exactly what they're looking for. So in today's conversation with my next guest, I'm actually really excited to talk more about the content and the messaging side of things, because I think that that's often lost when we talk about digital marketing. So my guest today is Shelley Goldstein, a keynote speaker and public speaking corporate trainer. But what I really want to dive into with Shelley today is her background as a digital marketer at like ground zero of the internet. Like, she was in digital marketing at a time when only a handful of people had websites, let alone social media. So I want to learn more from Shelley about what that was like and get back to basics and really comb through all the noise that we have right now about digital marketing and just connect to the message of, well, what message, what story do you need to be telling in order to attract the right client? So please welcome to the stage, Shelley Goldstein.
Oh, hello, Tara. Thank you. And I am equally as excited. I'm so happy when people just go back to that time of what marketing was like in the early 2000s. Very exciting to talk about. And so thank you for inviting me for that conversation today.
Well, so paint the picture for me, because when I talk about like the original, the ground zero of the internet, that we're not talking a super long time ago. We're talking about maybe 25 years ago. I was in university. We had our first, we had the landline, we had the dial-up connection. So there's all kinds of early internet nostalgia coming up for me. But I want to hear more about what it was like for you as a digital marketer, because there are, as much as I poo-poo marketing, it does a service. It does provide a structure for businesses to attract an audience and bring it back to where you need it most. But so tell us more about what it was like to create that space when it was basically a blank canvas.
Yeah, it was a blank canvas. Well, it takes me back even a little further for those of us that in the 90s, when we were just getting these big, giant desktop computers. And I remember email was a new thing, right? AOL and all these, right? Yahoo. And we had, we were sharing jokes. That was the big thing. Friends sharing jokes. It wasn't really a matter of business. That was more of an intranet type of thing within the organization. But going from someone's house to another person's house was sharing jokes, communicating, building relationships. So moving forward to the early 2000s, this expanse of marketing, right? There were a couple of people blogging that just basically was a newsletter that was online. I don't even think 50%, I believe the statistic is less than 50% of the US population even had computers, let alone emails and websites. And websites were just a standalone page. There was typical, interaction we have today with memes and whatnot. So it was really, really sparse landscape, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And especially
yeah, I was gonna say, I wanted to, I'm curious to know what kind of, because I'm thinking of the businesses that are seeing this as like the next frontier. So what was that like to convince like a business, for example, to have a website? So what kind of education and learning was involved in that process?
Oh my gosh. Well, it was challenging because at the time, the websites were a standalone page, and without a computer and without even understanding the advantage of that communication piece of sharing jokes or sharing information about your business, the email funnels were just starting to come to realization. But it was grueling. It took clearly another, I don't know, 5 years maybe into the mid or like 2005 till people started really using, I think it was 2003 when MySpace came on the scene. Again, this was all a social integration and a conversation. So as people were getting used to that, they slowly, snail pace, started to understand, well, I can send emails and get information, and the bloggers, that's where I was bringing that whole thing. So now people were saying, wow, I cannot just get jokes, and I could do more than share jokes. I could do more than, just learn about music from MySpace. I can actually have conversations and get information about my business. So it was slow, but that's about the time that I remember people started actually signing up and saying, oh, I have an email. Can I be on your list? Imagine that.
I love though those two early things though, because it's sharing jokes, is sharing your personality. It's creating that human connection. We both find this thing funny. And then sharing information. So in the work that I do with clients, my 3-second pitch is I get you on TV, but I'm working with more clients on their thought leadership and social media. And what I keep bringing them back to, whether it's social media or booking yourself on television, is that people are looking for human connection and information. So with all of these extra tools, like I'm thinking back to, my father's basement, that's where his office, that's where the computer was. We had to take turns getting onto the internet. Now, like I'm on my laptop, I have the internet here too. There are other devices, like individuals have multiple devices, multiple access to the internet. But the core of how we're using these platforms is still the same. We are looking for human connection and we are looking for information.
Well, people are social creatures. We need that human interaction to survive. Since the dawn of animals do it, humans do it. It's not an unusual thing. So once people started to get familiar with that and realize this was, you're absolutely right, an extension of the conversation, building those relationships. That's the foundation of any business. That's the foundation of any relationship, is to have that solid, open communication.
Yeah. The interesting thing though with communication is like we're used to, in real time, talking to someone in person or over the phone. Now we were talking to each other over video call. But one thing, and this is something that I still struggle with as an online business, as a digital marketer, and as a content creator, is it feels on my end a very one-sided conversation. There are many times where I feel like I'm screaming into the void, and I imagine in the early days of the internet where you're sending this stuff out there, but you don't know where it's going. So tell me a little bit more about what that kind of, because the space is still being created. People are still getting dial-up in their home. They're still buying more computers. So the infrastructure itself is still being built while you and your colleagues are mapping out these digital marketing strategies. So you're basically building the plane in the air. So what was that like?
It was very much one-sided. I think the comments on MySpace, the precursor to actually, Facebook and other social platforms, really came out of the not only sharing the content, but the comments and seeing what the comments do. As a matter of fact, I was marketing for a martial arts equipment company at the time. And we realized that in martial arts, a lot of the athletes, like the musicians, would publish their training record, their competition scores, and their weight and their division and class and where they were competing. So as a company that sold martial arts equipment, we were able to leverage that audience into street teams throughout the country to wear our patches, wear our shorts, use our gear through this collective platform where people were having this conversation. So these ideas of expanding into, I guess you can call them early influencers, the street teams, if you will, activation teams. I know cigarette companies and alcohol, they did that even before that. They'd literally go to locations and hand out packs of cigarettes, if you can actually imagine, ski slopes and parties. It was crazy. But that's really what we're doing here, is getting that interaction and that comment. And what was really interesting at the time, there was no playbook. It was kind of like, look at what I can do versus this is how you do it.
Yes.
That to me is really key, even today.
Yes. I love that picture that you're painting, which is similar to how I now run my social media. So when I first started, and I think if anyone's watching, if you're in the very, very beginning stages and you're thinking about using someone else's framework, do whatever you need to do to get started. As you were describing with the martial arts community, you don't know what your audience is going to do and how they're going to connect with you until you start sharing stuff. So that's my approach now. I don't think in terms of, well, how can I gamify this system? I don't do lead magnets anymore. I don't think in terms of what email automation can I put in place to generate sales. I've actually learned in sharing out of generosity and sharing just what I feel called to share. I've actually discovered that my following, the online community that I've developed, it's made up almost entirely of my referral network. So anyone who has come to work with me in the last year, there's zero digital footprint. Not all of them are following me. Very rarely do they like, share, or engage. But the people who send them my way are all people who follow me. Those are the ones who are engaging. Those are the ones who are involved. So now when I create content, I know that I'm actually feeding my referral network. So which totally shifted how I share. I don't keep stuff behind the paywall because I just assume that, or I know that whatever information I'm giving, it's giving to my audience what the ammunition that they need or the information that they need to send business my way. And I think that's just that idea of exploration of, well, if I just share what feels right, if I share what feels easy to me, and then let the audience dictate how that's going to work in terms of business, to me, that's a more freeing way of creating a digital platform. Am I wrong in thinking this way?
You're wrong, because like I said, it's really how people resonate with what you're sharing. I'll go back to the conversations and the comments on MySpace and going back and forth, having that dialogue, having that conversation is what changed social media for me. When I approach it today, it's having conversations, asking questions, making intelligent comments, and starting a dialogue. That's how we find out what each person knows and wants to share. Sharing stories, as you talked about. Yes, I have this to share. Somebody's going to comment, engage in that conversation. That's the root of it. Social media is about having really important or honest, important and honest, maybe conversations, not shouting at people, not taking from people, not constantly, just sell. It's about, what do you think of this? Have you ever thought of that?
Yeah.
Here's my story. Has that happened to you?
I love that mindset and that framework, because I don't think that people realize words have energy. So what you put out into the world has a certain vibration, a certain energy. So if you are creating a digital marketing system that is built on just collecting, just collecting data, collecting followers, collecting information, you're never giving anything in return. So then that is the energy that you're creating with your social media platform. For me, it's all about giving, sharing interesting conversations. Like this conversation started when we met in the fall or in the summertime, and I was like, people need to hear about what it was like to do digital marketing 20 years ago. But that, and as a creator as well, I'm never stuck for ideas. I'm never lost for, well, what am I going to create next? I have a backlog of material. I have material for days because I've collapsed this expectation of, well, what can I get with this? It's like, no, what can I give with this? How can I give more? And then just be surprised and delighted when it comes back to me, however it comes back to me. I mean, you work with speakers. I was thinking of all the speaking engagements that I have lined up this month, next month, and again in November. All of that, similar to the referral system, came from people who just follow me on social media. They like what I have to say, and they know that it's going to benefit their organization. I don't actively pitch myself with any kind of urgency because they just show up, they just appear, they come up in conversation. So this spirit of giving as opposed to getting, I think is a key, has been a key for me as a digital creator.
Reciprocity. I mean, public speaking is, a very big part of marketing because it's about communicating outward to another individual or individuals about something you feel passionate about, something you believe in, something you've experienced and just want to, hey, this happened to me. Isn't this cool? So yes, it is about that foundational principle is get out there and communicate. And the algorithms are important, don't get me wrong, but if you get too caught up in that, you can get lost without a message, and it becomes about a numbers game, and numbers do not drive emotions. Numbers don't necessarily, statistics don't necessarily, and they can make you feel bad when you say, well, the stock market crashed or something like that, or the stock market is booming at, 200%. Yes, that can make you exciting, but it's that emotion, that idea of what that 200% means that you're responding to. We need that human story. So every statistic, as Brene Brown says, it's like data with a soul. It gives you that emotional connection.
I love that we're now on the topic of communicating, because this is now the work that you do is with people who are communicating, but communicating with purpose. Keynote speaking in the corporate space, you're talking with an end goal in mind. So what do people get wrong about communicating their brand on larger stages?
Well, that's so interesting. And I guess this is where my marketing background really adds to a public speaking coach, because actually the framework that I've developed to crystallize your message, a lot of those clients are using it as well for their brand marketing. You have to have your purpose and your big idea, your message crystal clear. That's your solid foundation. Simon Sinek talks about why. Well, what's the idea? And then why is this important to me? Starting there and sharing that belief, that feeling. Look, you put blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of time into building your organization. Those are the stories that help people understand how important what you're providing as a service or a product is to that community.
I love the mention of purpose. I know that, people talk about their why. We've all read the same book. So we know that your purpose, your why is what motivates you as a human being. When I work with people on their media, purpose, I even build into all the storytelling techniques and tools that they're using to actually tell their story. I think it's the TV training in my mind. If you're going to post something, have a reason to post something. What is the news hook? Why are you sharing this on this particular day? So even with my social media, I still follow the editorial calendar. The content that I'm sharing in the fall is very different than the content that I shared in summertime, because I know that the audience that I'm reaching in the summertime, they're in vacation mode, right? They're at the cottage, they're relaxed, they're taking in information in a different way. And I know that in the fall, they're back in business. They're back, they're looking ahead to their Q4. The stakes are higher. So I also have the purpose and, the purpose of what I want to share, but then also the purpose of why am I justifying this person's attention? What am I giving that's going to help them live better today than they did yesterday? And even things like, I had a client the other day, and her marketing team requested we use emojis in the captions. And so I asked her, well, what's your emoji style? And the fact that someone can have any emoji style was mind blowing to them. They're like, well, just use emojis when they make sense. But I know that as a creator, what makes sense to me does not make sense to someone else. So you actually do. And so I'm very vigilant about having a purpose in not only what you share, but in when you share it and how you share it. And the more purpose, the more intention you have with all that stuff, the stronger your brand and message becomes.
Absolutely. It's about how you feel about something. And having a marketing calendar and a strategy is great. However, if there's something newsworthy that happens in the moment, please make that shift because you feel compelled to talk about it or bring it into the conversation because it's relevant to what you do and what you believe will help your clients or your audience understand. So as long as there's that flexibility, again, it's look at what I can do, not look at this is how I do it. That from the early 2000s, the beginning of internet marketing, still holds true today. And I think we need to embrace that casualness, that freedom, and not be fearful to say, well, if my video isn't perfect, if my post isn't perfect, and I'm not talking spell check, I'm just talking about organically communicating in human language. When we let go of those ideas, it is very easy to have a conversation as if you would talking to somebody in line at the coffee shop waiting to place your coffee order.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that this idea of releasing what I'm hearing you share is we need to release the idea that this is a new way of communicating. It's just a new tool. It's just a new platform. But the way that humans communicate, it's the exact same as it was before the internet age, before the computer age. We're looking for connection. We're looking for emotion. We're looking for information. For me, in my own journey, the biggest shift was when I realized, I'm actually producing television, but this is where it's airing. This is the screen that I'm using. And once I made that shift, then I knew I know how to make TV. So I'm just going to take all those skills and apply it to social media. So for any businesses that are watching, you have already been communicating with your customers and your clients. So just keep doing that, but you're just doing it on a different stage and a different platform.
Well, it's like running shoes. You have a pair of running shoes and one day you're running on a mountain single track. One day you're running in the streets. One day you're running in a park that has a sand type of ground, or you're running in an asphalt inside of a gymnasium. You're still running and you're still wearing sneakers, some sort of sneakers, but the circumstances change. Yeah. And that's okay. It's adaptable.
Oh, I could talk to you forever about storytelling and marketing in the early days of the internet, but I want to leave everyone. So what is one thing that everyone can do today to improve their digital marketing?
Speak like yourself. Talk to your audience as if you want to be spoken to by another brand. Hear something that is an organic, honest conversation. Human words, not jargon and acronyms that maybe people will not understand. Just speak like yourself, human to human.
I love that. Oh, and this is from two professional communicators. Well, thank you so much, Shelley. This has been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you, bringing us through memory lane and bringing it back down to the basics. That we're just humans looking for humans on this platform. So, where can people find more about you?
At speakingresource.com and of course remarkablespeaking.com. That is my consultancy.
Amazing. And I'm sure they're very dynamic web pages.
Well, lots of talk about being yourself, but Tara, this was so much fun going down memory lane. I love this. And I hope the audience took something away from Those days.
I'm sure they did. All right. Thank you so much, Shelley.